Hi, I'm Mystery Red. I'm an award-winning fanfic author for the TMNT fandom, specializing in 2012 and 2014 verse, but my channel will not be limited only to the TMNT fandom. Um, Here we're going to talk about writing, fan fiction, beta reading. I'll give constructive concrete and I'll both recommend fics and take recommendations. I will also read chapter samples or one shots, and with permission, I may read complete pieces over a course of videos. Since I'm just getting started, I'm going to open up my comments for beta read and or concrete requests. If you have a piece you would like a little bit of help with and you're willing to let me discuss it here on my channel, comment below. Please tell me if you want a beta read or a concrete or both, whether you want your pen name known or if you want to remain anonymous. For now, I'll concrete or beta read one shots and first chapters. And I'll also post a link to your piece in the video when I do the concrete or the beta read. Writing is hard. It's fun. Oh my God, it's so much fun. But it's hard. And fanfic can be a great place to learn. And I think that it has a bad reputation that I'd like um, to transcend. So hopefully we can do that together. Let's see. It is not letting me see my archive. That was my home screen, guys. I don't want this one. I want AO3. Okay, so this is my fanfiction.net about page, and it's my profile page. I got started on fanfic.net. It is not what I use as my base platform anymore. I prefer archive, as I think a lot of writers do. I'm sure we'll have a discussion for all the different platforms we love and why we love them, because the amount of topics that we can cover is endless. So this is me. I am Mystery Red. On Tumblr, I'm known as Amunet Red, AMUNET Red, and on DeviantArt, I am Mystery Red 1. And on fanfic.net, I'm Mystery Red. Those are the four platforms where I'm typically published. I do not publish all my pieces in all places. So my favorite pieces go in certain spots. AO3 is my favorite. We are not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about me today. I'll do a separate video on myself so that you can get to know the person who is offering to concrete or beta read / both for you. I know that is one of the number one requests I get in my lovely comments. Be like, I love your work. Would you care? People are afraid to ask, but I'm going to tell you, I've made some amazing friends that I've been friends with for, I guess, over 10 years or 10 years. It's almost 10 years. Almost 10 years from fan fiction. So what I'm going to do here is I don't want to jump into someone else's piece and kind of throw them under the bus. I don't want to do that. And when I read, you're going to find that I'm not mean. I hope I'm fair and I'm honest. So I'm going to throw myself under the bus. So I'll be the first victim when I write. When I do a read or a concrete, I'm gonna do one to myself so that you can get a feel for what to expect when I do one. If you were to send me a link to a Word document or a Google Doc, I will actually write comments. I'll add comments into the document, and I'll do that literally while I'm making the video. So you'll get my initial impressions. If you just send me a link to a published piece, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to read it and I'm going to give you my suggestions, tips, and comments and thoughts. They're not going to be in writing. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to point to it while I'm reading it, or I'll give pause and I'll give a tip. We're going to do one together. We're going to use me as a victim. Because I don't want to do that to someone. I don't want to just dive into a piece of work that no one asked for help on. So we're not going to do that. I'd like to share works with permission. You should always do that. it's a kind of a rule in fan fiction and in fandoms that you give the creator their dues. So I'm going to go back, way back to my beginning. As you can see, I'm down here on page 2, which is showing me I've expanded my works. It looks like I have 39 works here on the archive. And I've expanded it to show all of them. And then I've gone to my beginning, my oldest pieces. I did apparently start writing fan fiction in around 2015, although I don't know exactly when, because I began on fanfiction.net. And I think I had to request an invitation to become a member of AO3, but I heard talk about it in I don't know where I was. It's been so long since I got started. There was a fan fiction forum that I was in, and they were talking about AO3 and how wonderful it was. And so I came over here, and it is wonderful, and I have no plan on leaving. So here I am at one of my oldest pieces, and I'm going back to one of my oldest pieces because as you, as a writer, start your journey, you'll have your first piece, and then you're going to write your second piece and your third piece. Now, a bunch of mine are published. A lot of them are published around similar dates because I was transferring my works from one platform to the other. But so I don't really know which order these were written in, but I do know my oldest ones are obviously, I feel like they're going to be down here. I could go to fanfic.net, but I prefer viewing here. I could go there and get a real date as to how old a piece is. But when you start out, you have to start somewhere. So when you start writing, you just gotta dive in and try, and you can learn as you go. And the beautiful thing is you can go back and revise an older piece and make it, as you gain skill, make it more into what you wanted it to be. So I honestly read some of my favorite pieces every year. Certain times of year, I'll just get an urge to go in and I'll be like, I really want to revisit this story. I loved it so much. And I'll go back and I'll read a character's journey all over again. And I'll critique myself every time. So there's some pieces I can't keep my hands off. I'll go back in, I'll be like, oh, I can't stand this. Sometimes I don't have the time to do my own beta reading and revision. And so I just have to leave it for what it is. I also don't want to accidentally delete anything. But we're going to dive into Alone. It is a character study of Karai kind of reflecting on the past year of her life. So this piece was written, it is in the 2012 fandom, and it was written with the thought of when Karai was mutated and she became like half snake and half girl, and she's got this tragic thing going on, and she was going through some stuff. So I did a little character study into what she must feel like. I dedicated this piece to my friend Beauty and Harmony, who is a longtime follower of my work, and she's wonderful. And we are just going to dive right in and take a look. And what I'm going to do is, I haven't read this piece in years, so I don't even know if I remember what I've written. I do know that I did do a character study, so I can tell you that much. And Karai was Beauty's favorite character. So I'm going to dive in. I'm going to read it. And maybe as I go, as I have thoughts or I see something I want to fix or that I want to change, I'm going to just discuss that as I go. So if I was doing a beta read or a Concrit for you and you send me a piece, I'm going to bring it up like this. If you send it to me already published, I'm going to open it up and I'm just going to do exactly what I'm going to do right now with this piece. And if you send me a Word document or a Google Doc or something like that, I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm probably going to stop and make little tags on the edits from that perspective. I'm going to give you an open heads up. My grammar is okay, good, okay, all right. Yeah, I've had some positive. If I've scrubbed a piece, which most of these are not scrubbed, and like I said, this is one of my beginner pieces. So hopefully, as you go through your newer pieces, you're going to see the improvement in the quality of your own writing. But My grammar is okay. I struggled in the beginning with run-on sentences. Another one of my writing flaws is I can dive into uh, or get myself lost into words, pretty words, and I'll end up uh, telling. And I need to do show, not tell. So those are two of the things that I personally work on as a writer. And even to this day, I can slip into telling if I'm not careful. I'm much, much better at it now that I've been writing for, well, I've been writing for years, but writing fan fiction, I've had the honor of having lots of help from lots of wonderful people who want people to grow as a writer. So here we go. Alone, hollow, empty, vacant, void. That was how I'd felt for so long I'd gotten comfortable with it. I could be in a room filled with life buzzing around me, people carrying on with everyday tasks. I would watch them interact with relative ease. Some paid more attention to the niceties than others: eye contact, a greeting, chit chat, and then a farewell. Then there were those who couldn't be bothered to say, "Excuse me, please," or "Thank you," let alone squeak out a hello. I sipped on my tea, watching a well-dressed businessman wave off the server as if she were a fly. Yet the gentleman taking his seat across from him motioned her back, looked her in the eye, and gave her a genuine smile. It didn't matter what class they fell in. People could be as right as rain or as bitter as an Arctic wind. Yet, as I sat basking in the golden warmth of an early morning sun, noticing the frown etched on his handsome face, and the furrow of his brow which drew my gaze to the overwhelming pain in his eyes, I gave pause to wonder if there wasn't something more going on in the less than friendly man's life. Pause. We're going to pause. This is this is one of those lovely run-on sentences that I told you I was guilty of, especially in the beginning. I'm so much better at those now. But if I was to critique this piece, or I'm betaing and I'm looking at it, I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to say, okay, this is a run-on. We got to look at it. Yet, I would probably say yet, comma, as I sat basking in the golden warmth of an early morning sun, noticing the frown etched on his handsome face, and the furrow of his brow, which drew my gaze to the overwhelming pain in his eyes. See, this is a little bit telling as well. I gave pause to wonder if there wasn't something more going on in the less than friendly man's life. I got a couple problems with this. Like, why did I think he was less than friendly? Let's see, let me back up. I sipped on my tea, watching a well-dressed businessman wave off the server as if she were a fly. So we're talking about this guy. Yet, the gentleman taking his seat across from him motioned her back, looked her in the eye, and gave her a genuine smile. So I'm demonstrating a kinder person. It didn't matter what class they fell in. These are both gentlemen, businessmen. These are not, okay, got it. It didn't matter what class they fell in. People could be as right as rain or as bitter as an Arctic wind. This is true. Okay, so as I sat basking in the golden warmth of an early morning sun, noticing the frown etched on his handsome face and the furrow of his brow. Okay, I'd probably leave this out. I'd probably cut that. Okay, so let's see. And the furrow of his brow. I gave pause to wonder if there wasn't something more. I might say just omit something and say more going on. Okay. Yet as I sat basking in the golden warmth of an early morning sun, noticing the frown etched on his handsome face, I gave pause to wonder if there wasn't more going on in the less than friendly man's life. I might just do that. I would omit this whole bit right here. It's me trying to convey how a person felt, but I'm telling. It's telling, and it's a run-on, and I could totally fix that. All right, so let's look at this. I sipped on my tea, watching a well-dressed businessman wave off the server as if she were a fly. Yet the gentleman taking his seat across from him motioned her back, looked her in the eye, and gave her a genuine smile. It didn't matter what class they fell in. People could be as right as rain or as bitter as an Arctic wind. Yet, as I sat basking in the golden warmth of an early morning sun, noticing the frown etched on his handsome face, I gave pause to wonder if there wasn't something more going on in the less than friendly man's life. Great. I probably, after omitting that, would maybe scoot this on up here as well, because it's still in the same thoughts. There was certainly more to my own. So now she's going to talk about her life. Okay, here we go. There was certainly more to my own, and while I too had dismissed my server rather coldly, the longer I sat here musing the lives of those around me, I realized that sometimes the details, the little courtesies, can make a big difference to others, helping them to cope with whatever troubles plagued them. Okay, so I got run on here, but I don't dislike what the context is. So I don't know that I necessarily want to change it as much as I might break it up and try to make a couple different sentences here. There was certainly more to my own, and while I too had dismissed my server coldly, the longer I sat here musing the lives of those around me, I realized that sometimes the details, the little courtesies, can make a big difference. Okay, so I may omit this part right here. I don't need it. I'm still getting the same impact, even though these lovely words they're angsty and deep or whatever. They're pretty words. They're extra. We don't need them, and our sentence can stand on its own without it. So I would just put a period right there. And I'm still going to leave this stand on its own. We'll see what happens down here. Because it's its own thought. She's now gone from thinking about others and reflecting on them. She's now looking at herself. So we're going to move on. Okay. I'd left the lair early this morning, needing to feel the sun on my face, and even the damp morning air on my skin was better than the dank, musty smell that clung to my new home. That's not a terrible sentence. It's a little long, but we're going to go with it. I kind of like it. See, I still like a long sentence. I like pretty words. I'd placed one foot in front of the other until I reached the little corner bistro, taking a seat outside to dine al fresco. But all I'd ordered was the tea. I'm going to let that lay for a minute. I'm going to let it lay. I'm having this thought of redundancy. I'd place one foot in front of the other until I reached the little corner bistro, taking a seat outside. I don't need to say to dine al fresco. I could just omit that part. There's some redundancy there. So if I'm nitpicking myself, I would omit that, and then everything else is fine. All right, she's having tea. The server came around again, a beautiful Hispanic girl with bright purple streaks running the length of her mahogany-colored locks. Okay, of the mahogany-colored locks sweeping her hip. Okay, so I'm painting a picture here of what this girl looks like, and I know who this girl is. She's actually a character, not one that I created. I'm just using a character. Actually, I think I don't think she's in 2012. I think she's in 2007, but sometimes I'll pull somebody I liked and stick them over here into my stories, and so I'm putting her in the place of a server right now. So the server came around again, a beautiful Hispanic girl with bright purple streaks running the length, I would say, of her mahogany. I don't need to have colored. I'd omit this word. Mahogany locks, of the mahogany locks sweeping her hip. It's kind of nice. I like the idea of giving the idea of how long her hair is. Okay. Bright purple streaks running the length of the mahogany of her. This bothers me a little bit. We gotta play with it for a second. The server came around again, a beautiful Hispanic girl with bright purple streaks running the length of her. I want to say that the hip, though. I like saying the length. I do like the length. The length of the mahogany strands sweeping her hip. I would change this word to strands. There we go. Can I get anything else for you? Okay, so she has here we go. She had a classic Brooklyn accent, and I could tell that she was less than happy with her morning customers as she popped her hand on her hip. Batted her eyes and feigned a grin. Here I did it again. I'm giving too much. Okay, I am painting a picture, but I'm doing too much. I don't need to have 3 expressions. One is sufficient to say how sassy she is. She had a classic Brooklyn accent, and I could tell that she was less than happy with her morning customers as she popped a hand on her hip. Okay, she doesn't need to bat her eyes, okay? And she doesn't need feigning a grin could definitely convey she's forcing it. It's a tight grin. I kind of like that part. Popping a hand on her hip might be sufficient, or I would go with one or the other instead of both. So she popped her hand on her hip, or as she feigned a grin. But she's talking to me. She's talking to Cry. So I would probably just go with she popped her hand on her hip, period. Now, here we get a word echo. And what a word echo is where you have used a word within a sentence of another word, or sometimes within the same piece, okay? Sometimes it's okay. Most of the time I prefer not to. So when I think about word echoes where we got the sentence, we got the word hip here and we got the word hip here, that's too much. So I would probably change this up. She had a classic Brooklyn accent, and I could tell that she was less than happy with her morning customers as she feigned a grin. Maybe. I might play with it longer, but you get the gist of what I'm telling you I'd change here and why I'd change it. Word echoes irritate me. They distract me as a reader. My brain catches on it and gives me pause. And the whole point of becoming a better writer, one of the goals, is to not give your reader a pause. You want to immerse your reader completely in your piece so that they don't have to stop and try to figure out what you're trying to say. You want it to be seamless. So I would I'd do some rewording here, get rid of this double hip. I would pick one of these other actions that she did. I wouldn't pick batted her eyes, because now I look back and I'm like, no, batting her eyes can be flirty. I mean, some people do it in irritation. That's true. But it's not necessary to say that. It's not helping this. Okay. It's not helping what she's doing. She's showing her sass. Got it. She glanced at her name tag. So she's got Cry's attention. Cry's looking at her name tag. Let's see what happens next. Looking straight in her caramel colored eyes. Okay. I'm already irritated. It's my piece and I'm already irritated with it. Okay. Now I'm not going to be irritated with you guys. But I would tell you I'm irritated with myself because these are things I don't like. Looking straight in her caramel eyes, I offered her my friendliest smile. Not that it was much. Another tea, please, Angel. Okay, so my punctuation's gotten a lot better. All right. It's not awesome. I'd put a period here and I'd say another tea. I would take this comma and I'd scoot this comma right here. Okay. Another tea, please, comma, Angel. Got it? All right. Looking straight in her caramel eyes, I'd take this out. I offered her my friendliest smile. Not that it was much. Period. Another tea, please, comma, Angel. All right. There was a little light in her eyes as I sensed the mutual exchange of respect as she raised a perfectly plucked eyebrow and the corner of her mouth drew up. Period. I kind of like this. It's a little bit much, but I still kind of like it. Sure, comma, be right back with that. Glancing, okay, I already don't want to see this word here. Sometimes, a lot of times when we use the word back to say we're looking back, sometimes you don't have to use it. And here she's glancing at the table the two corporate men had been seated at. I don't need the word back in there. I know where she's looking. Glancing at the table the two corporate men had been seated at, I found it now empty and realized I was the only one on the patio. She doesn't need the word now. I can omit the word now. I might even need a comma in there somewhere. Glancing at the table the two corporate men had been seated at, I found it now empty and realized I was the only one on the patio. Maybe. Typical. Why is this typical? What am I doing? I turned my attention to the street, watching the myriad of people on the sidewalk. You know what would have helped right here? Okay, so what was typical? They came, they did their business, and they left. Why is it? Yeah, I guess that is typical, but what was the point of it? Okay, yes, she finds herself alone. I get that. Okay. Glancing back at the table, she's found herself alone. Okay. But maybe if I would have said something about them not leaving a tip or something. I don't know that that's typical either, but I don't understand what crime they've committed. I guess, or maybe I'm just cranky. Correct, I'm referring to whenever I'm writing my whatever character's mind I'm in. That's an extension of myself. That's my thought process. So, Karai's at the table. The other two dudes left. It's empty. She realizes she's alone. I think I just cut this word. I just cut it. The point is, she realized she's alone. I turned my attention to the street, watching the myriad of people on the sidewalk. With a sip of my now cold tea, I mused over the craziness that was my life so far. Raised by a man I believed to be my father and taught to fight with precision and accuracy since I could walk, I knew my childhood had been nothing that little girls dreamed about. There were never any hugs, no kissing wounds, no childish games, and I'd never had a mother. So forget something as trivial as a pet. Now, that's a little bit of a long sentence. It's okay. There's nothing not working about it, but it is there's a lot of comments there. So I might break it up into 2 sentences. There were never any hugs, no kissed wounds, and no childish games. I would say, and no childish games, period. Scratch that. I'd never had a mother, so forget something as trivial as a pet. Second sentence. Okay. Occasionally, I would get to dress in beautiful silk kimonos, but that was only in formal business exchanges where my father deemed it vital to his image. What kind of image was it? To be terrifying, cold, and devoid of anything but raging hate. I was tutored, so I never met other children at school, nor did I celebrate my own birthday, let alone another child's. All the things that I now know, or that I've witnessed about what should be a normal kid's life, painted the picture of mine being nothing short of a nightmare. Many a time, I'd longed for something as simple as a hug, or even the tiny comfort that came from having someone to talk to. Maybe a stuffed animal would have helped. A little. I had none of those things. What I had was my own personal arsenal of weapons and an education in how to kill. And as it turned out, that man wasn't my father at all. So my world went from dark, cold, and violent to blurry and tepid, but still violent. I was trapped in a war I'd known nothing of and learned that I was a tool wielded to make my birth father suffer, and the more I learned, the angrier I became. Fury was an even blacker abyss than my childhood. It left me swinging aimlessly when I should have been cool and calculating like Donatello or plotting like Leonardo. Okay, so I'm going to stop here for a second. So my world went from dark, cold, and violent to blurry and tepid, but still violent. I was trapped in a war I'd known nothing of and learned that I was a tool wielded to make my birth father suffer. Period. The more I learned, the angrier I became. See that? Just pop a period right there, omit that, capitalize that, we're good to go. Fury was an even blacker abyss than my childhood. It left me swinging aimlessly when I should have been cool and calculating like Donatello and plotting like Leonardo. Okay, or plotting, got it. Okay, the thought of them, my newly acquired adoptive brothers and biological father, brought a strange ache to my chest as if I was frostbitten and thawing out. This terrified me. My entire life I'd practiced not feeling, and here I was amid this close-knit group that looked out for one another, fought beside each other, listened, played games, tended to wounds, played pranks, and even on occasion embraced. The blur of my world was suddenly a rainbow of colors all bleeding into one another, and at the end of it was something golden, blindingly bright and promising. And if I could find the courage to walk toward it, I suspected everything might get a little better. There's a long sentence in there. I still really like it, and I'm going to leave it. Okay, so I'm going to pause a minute right there and say, whenever you get a beta read or a concrit, you have to keep something in mind. Whatever it is that the person doing the beta read or the concrit gives you is largely going to be their opinion. And the bonus of me doing it here is I get to give my thought process as to how I'm arriving at the changes that I'm suggesting. Whereas when we just hand it back, you get the comments, and that can kind of give you that same bit of information. Sometimes it just gives you a comment. Like I might say word echo. That's all I'm going to say. After I've explained what a word echo is to you, I'm just going to say word echo. But in these are opinions, okay? Personally, I'm okay with this sentence. Not every reader is going to be okay with the sentence. My rule of thumb when I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to change something is, did it give me pause and disrupt me from my story? Did it pull me out of the story when I was reading it? If it did, then I probably need to change it. I'm actively looking for nitpicking things for the sake of discussion here. So I did note that this was a long sentence, although I still really like it. And that's one of my little character flaws myself. So take it or leave it. You could change it. I could probably break it up into 2 sentences, but I still really like it. So we're just gonna roll with it. But then I was turned into a mutant snake, ended up rescuing my birth father from drowning, and was left with even more time to think about everything that had happened. And in those moments, beneath a starless sky in an alien-controlled city, I found myself pondering the turtle boy who'd done everything he could to help me. Here's your tea. The server, Angel, placed a silver teapot before me, snapping me from my reverie. I glanced at the steam rolling from the spout, then noticed the girl had her apron in one hand. Is your shift ending? Yeah, she sighed. Got an hour break before I gotta be back for lunch shift, then another hour before dinner. Well, that's a long day. I tried to appear impressed, knowing that my training schedule used to mimic her workday. Yeah, well, it's this or go back to dancing, and I'm through with that. If I have to beat down one more punk who thinks I'm a revolving door, I'm going to lose it. I found myself giggling. She sounded so much like Raphael that an image of him saying those things popped in my head. You think that's funny? Her bronze cheeks flushed. See, okay, I don't like that. I would omit this word. I don't need it. I'm saying what color it is. I don't need to say that it's a color. I could nitpick some punctuation back here probably. In places I can scroll back and kind of see that. I'm not going to at the moment, but I could probably go back and nitpick some punctuation maybe. I actually got better. See, I was inconsistent. So I'm okay with this one. It might technically not be correct. I'm not sure because grammar is not my number one forte. Wow, that's a long day, period. There we go. I knew I could have something in there. Yeah, well, it's this or go back. Okay, that's good. I do not have anything that implies that this is Angel talking, but we do know that this is Karai's story. She's talking to Angel, so it's kind of implied. For the sake of fan fiction writing, this is fine. If you were writing for something more professional, you probably would need an action tag or something that lets you know who is speaking, although it's also implied. So I've seen it done both ways. I'm not going to nitpick that in this situation. Let's see, you think that's funny? No, I apologize. You remind me of my brother when you speak, and I couldn't help an image of him dancing. Forget it. I shook my head before noticing her smile. Hey, guys do it too. If your brother's cute, he might be good at it. I couldn't tell if she was joking or not, but I was enjoying her candor, and now I found myself imagining a dancing Raphael and pondered the idea of him being cute. Well, I liked his attitude, but he wasn't for me. His blue-clad brother, on the other hand. But Leo dancing was even funnier than Raph, and I realized that Angel was staring at me while my cheeks hurt for the smile on my face. Now, wow, who do you have it bad for? Realizing that my cheeks were ablaze, I ran my hands over them. Period. Oh no. Angel's hands gripped the ridge of the seat across from me. Period. Wow, you didn't even know? Girl, I tell you what, let me clock out and we can talk about it. You look like you could use someone to just listen. Maybe I should have been a bartender. She winked at me and turned and disappeared into the restaurant. Do I talk to a complete stranger? I mean, I can leave out the whole he's a mutant turtle parts. Before I had time to change my mind, she bounced back, yanked out a seat, and plopped down opposite me. Period. Hi, I'm Angel. This is a good one. Hi, I'm Angel, and you are? We'll go with that. Might not be technically correct. Someone in the grammar, like a grammar warrior, can comment on that. I looked at her heavily ringed fingers and smiled. For some reason, this felt really good. Period. I'm Karai. Well, Karai, tell me all about this guy who's making you blush. Okay. I've said she had a Brooklyn accent. I probably would omit the G and go with an apostrophe and be consistent there. And I would have, Karai, tell me about this guy who's making you blush. You don't look the type for it. Period. She pointed to my studded jacket and bleached blonde undertones. I'm not. Period. I poured fresh tea in my cup. Period. Well, capital, comma, well, I wasn't. I'm not even sure who I am anymore. As I glanced in Angel's direction, I found her leaning forward, listening attentively, and I liked it. Her eyes were warm and sincere, comma, despite the thick black eyeliner that bore stark contrast to her behavior towards me. I don't like this sentence. Her eyes were warm and sincere. I'd probably say despite her gruff first impression, honestly. Yeah. And honestly, Karai puts off a gruff first impression. But we know she's deeper than that, at least in 2012. So her eyes were warm and sincere despite my first impression or her first impression. Okay, moving on. Girl, comma, if you ain't sure about who you are, you shouldn't even be thinking about no guys. I love this line so much. I like this, really do. This is life advice. Okay, moving on. She tapped the table with her fingers, and the black mesh rattled a little. My heart sank and my stomach twisted, but Leo's endless pleas for me to let him help me, and the way his cobalt eyes would echo the concern in his voice, well, it was part of the reason for that numb, tingling feeling in my heart, and I couldn't ignore it forever. Lordy, do I love a run-on. Okay, I get into that. My heart sank and my stomach twisted, comma, but Leo's endless pleas for me to help him. I'd probably just omit this whole I bit and the voice thing. I'd just omit it. It's a little bit over the top. My heart sank and my stomach twisted, but Leo's endless pleas for me to let him help me, well, it was part of the reason for that numb, tingling feeling in my heart, and I couldn't ignore it forever. I would keep the part, I was going to say you can absolutely omit this, but I'm actually going to say I would personally keep it because she's got feelings and she's trying to ignore them, and so I'm just going to roll with that. It's like he was holding a lighter beneath the iceberg in the middle of my chest, and all the darkness surrounding it was melting away. I like that. We're going to keep it too. I would agree with you, comma, but he's capital right there. What could I say? He's a mutant turtle with a smug smile and beautiful eyes, who, albeit he can be arrogant, is the only equally skilled swordsman I've ever met. When our weapons clash, I can almost feel the blade shaving off every layer of pain I feel. Sparring with him releases so much anger, but it's also building up tension between us. I kind of like that. Let's see. Let's look at it. It's not distracting to me, but let's look at it objectively. Let's see if we can nitpick it. He's a mutant turtle. Okay. He's a mutant turtle. I mean, he's a mutant turtle, but he is a mutant, comma, and he is a turtle with a smug smile and beautiful eyes. I like that. Okay. Who, albeit he can be arrogant, is the only equally skilled swordsman I've ever met. When our weapons clash, I can almost feel the blade shaving off every layer of pain I feel. Sparring with him releases so much anger, maybe a comma there, but it's also building up tension between us. And she's trying to give pause. So initially I must have been trying to give pause to this to him before letting it punctuate that emphasize that the tension was between them. This could be omitted. The period could be there, or sparring with him releases so much anger, comma, but it's also building up tension between us, and just take the comma away right there. So basically I'm moving the comma in that sentence. It's like he's determined to get to the root of me, to figure me out, to draw me in with every fight. No matter who wins the match, I feel he's succeeding at earning a place in my heart. Stop. I'm going to stop right there. I would put a period right there, and then I would capitalize the no and go, no matter who wins the match, I fear he's succeeding at earning a place in my heart. All right, let's read it with it being less distracting or without me interrupting. And I'm going to read it the way I just suggested change. It's like he's determined to get to the root of me, to figure me out, to draw me in with every fight. No matter who wins the match, I fear he's succeeding at earning a place in my heart. A place that no one has ever been, ever. Not a parent, not a friend, no one. and no thing has ever touched such a deep place within me the way Leonardo has. Because he was the first to care, and that I would never forget. He believed in me from day one and long before I had any faith in myself. He's both honorable and loyal, two traits I'd long desired in a friend, and only such a man would I ever consider for a lover. Cry, you didn't finish and you're blushing again. Girl, he must be some kind of guy. Okay. Let's see. Cry, you didn't finish and you're blushing again. Girl, he must. I guess that's okay.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oh, Siri's going to help us. Okay. I dropped my gaze to the pale green colored tea. Why? Apparently, I had a habit. Hopefully, that does not exist anymore. I wonder how many of my pieces, when I do self-studies like this, where we're going to find this. Probably a lot. And I'll talk about that in a minute. All right, I dropped my gaze to the pale green tea swirling around in my cup. And it occurred to me that as empty as I had felt, I hadn't been since I met him. Not when I was locked away in a dungeon or slithering around New York as a mutant. Even when I'd been mind-controlled, there was something deep within me that I'd been protecting. A tiny fault in the ice block that all began with the words, I can help you cry. There's goodness in you. I know it. Oh, I love this paragraph. But we're going to nitpick. Let's go back and nitpick. I dropped my gaze to the pale tea swirling around in my cup, and it occurred to me that as empty as I had felt, I hadn't been since I met him. Okay, I would probably drop the word and at the beginning and just capitalize this I. If you are doing a self-study and you start a sentence with the word and, you can go back and reread it and just pretend it's not there and see if it doesn't sound just as great without that word there. Most of the times, I'd say 9 out of 10, you're still going to love it. So we're going to omit the and, capitalize the I, and we're moving on. It occurred to me that as empty as I had felt, I hadn't been since I met him. Not when I was locked away in a dungeon or slithering around New York as a mutant. Even when I'd been mind-controlled, there was something deep within me that I'd been protecting. A tiny fault in the ice block that all began with the words, I can help you cry. There's goodness in you. I know it. Okay. I would stop this sentence, not when I was locked away in a dungeon or slithering around New York as a mutant, period. And then capitalized E, even when I'd been mind-controlled. I might put a comma right here. Don't know if that's technically correct, but I might if I'm changing this up. Even when I'd been mind-controlled, comma, there was something deep within me that I'd been protecting. Or I might omit the comma altogether. Even when I'd been mind-controlled, there was something deep within me that I'd been protecting. Comma here, I'd keep that. A tiny fault in the ice block that all begin with the words, I can help you, comma, cry. There's goodness in you, I know it. Kind of like that whole paragraph a little bit. For some reason, there was a lump in my throat and something wet and dreadful in my eyes, period. He believed in me, period. He's always believed in me. Obviously, that would be capitalized, the H. Angel's purple polished nails appeared over my hand, period. Then maybe you need to let him help you heal. Maybe you need to let him help you heal from whatever it is that you are so obviously struggling with. You may look it, but I don't think you are. Okay, so let's look at this. So she had a Brooklyn accent. We can't just all of a sudden throw that out the window. Although I could say this. Angel's purple polished nails appeared over my hand. All the Brooklyn gone from her voice. Then maybe you need to let him help you heal from whatever it is that you are so obviously struggling with. You may look it, but I don't think you are. Okay, I really like the idea of just adding that little bit of all the Brooklyn gone from her voice. A lot of times, anybody with an accent, which you're probably going to find some Southern intonation on me sometimes in places, but wherever we're from, our little local dialect, those little intonations and wordings and habits of the way we speak, a lot of times when we're really angry or really passionate or very serious, whatever the situation is, and we got some strong, powerful words, a lot of times we drop all of that. And either it comes out really, really thick and really heavy and strong, or it's gone. So I'd say I'd just add that little all the Brooklyn gone from her voice, and that lets you know how seriously she's taking what she's saying. Now I stumbled reading it out loud right here because of I think because of the H words, the three H words close together. But I don't know that it really is difficult to read, just to read it to yourself. Let me try that. Maybe just try that. I might put a comma here, maybe. Then maybe you need to let him help you heal, comma, from whatever it. Yeah, I think that might help. Give it a little break right there, a little comma from whatever it is that you're so obviously struggling with. Yeah, so maybe a little comma right there. What? So Karai's asking her what. Okay, here we go. Last line. I looked into the other girl's eyes and saw a reflection of myself, wise in the worlds of others and ignorant of my own. Her full mauve lips slid smoothly into an easy smile, period. Alone. Okay, omitting the word colored and putting a period right here and alone. Done. Okay, so you've got an idea of what is involved in a Concrit beta read combo, because that was kind of both. I would typically recommend both, honestly, because I can just skip over grammar, but I'm going to fumble over a read if the punctuation's off. And as you can see, you can also fumble just because you got the words that start with the same letter, even though there's nothing technically wrong with it. It's just a reading thing. So let's see. There's one down. Okay. This story is a little one shot. Because it's a self study. They don't tend to be the most popular. It's a character study, so they don't tend to be the most popular pieces, which leans into a discussion of why rewrite, what rewrite, and I think that'll be a separate video. Probably doesn't need to be, could be, I don't know, but I don't want to dive into a whole nother topic here. And if I don't stop talking, I will keep talking, and we'll talk about everything in one video. So we're going to stop there. And so that is a Concrit and beta read of my own piece, Alone. And I'm going to open my channel up to comments of you guys requesting Concrit beta reads, and I'll do the same thing for your piece. And we'll go through just like this if it's already published, or if it's a draft, I'll go through it just like this and add little notes as we go. So that's all for today's episode of Mystery Red Reads. See you next time.